Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Cinefied podcast, where we discuss cinema's newest releases and whether or not we recommend them. Today, we are joined by Cinefied writer Josh Davis, and we have a guest on the panel this week, editor from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Please welcome Morgan Coulson. Today, we are discussing the new adaptation of Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, the 8th adaptation, as a matter of fact, of this novel. And this time it's from director Emerald Fennell, director of films such as Promising Young Woman and Saltburn, both delivering very different experiences, but also are pretty split down the middle audience-wise. Josh, Morgan, what do you think about those two films?
I think it's amazing storytelling, but I think they are disturbing, but they're meant to be. I think she subverts a lot of classic narratives in really interesting ways. But this version of Wuthering Heights was definitely a huge pivot for her.
Yeah, I agree. I like her movies. I like Promising Young Woman a lot. Moody, atmospheric. One of my favorite things about this new movie is the fact that it's marketed to such a big audience. I think you're going to have lots of general audiences walk into a really weird movie.
Right.
And I kind of love that.
And you two mentioned earlier that you two had read the book before. I myself had come into this never reading a word of the Emily Bronte novel. So this is like
that book. This is one of my least favorite books of all time.
Interesting.
Because all the characters are so irredeemable. I can enjoy the movie in a different way, but reading it for me was a slog because everyone is terrible.
Oh yeah, it's
I don't think Morgan agrees with that.
It'd be a very interesting to really dive into that novel, but I just have there are also multiple adaptations of this, and Morgan, you had mentioned you had perhaps seen all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen a lot. I actually watched the 1939 with Laurence Olivier and Merle Oberon last night, just to watch it because I hadn't seen it in many, many years. But I've seen the one with Tom Hardy. I've seen the one with Ralph Fiennes. I mean, as you pointed out, there's been many, but I've seen quite a few of them. I think the quintessential one is the 1939, but yeah. I mean, this is definitely a 180. I mean, the bones are there, but it's definitely different.
I'll have to check out the one from 1939 because I just a few weeks ago I watched a Laurence Olivier movie, the Alfred Hitchcock movie Rebecca, which he's in, and a lot of actually plot elements of Wuthering Heights reminded me of the story of Rebecca. So I thought I thought that's an interesting thread there. But back to this. What's the last thing you heard?
But back to this.
But back to this 2026 adaptation, we have a whole cavalcade of people helping Fennell bring this adaptation to life. We have original songs from Charlie XCX, as well as cinematography done by Louis Sandgren. He won cinematography Oscar for La La Land and has shot the movies after that, but also shot my favorite Bond movie, No Time to Die. And he's also going to be he's also the cinematographer replacing Greg Fraser on the third Dune movie. So I'm very excited to see what he brings to that adaptation. We also have Oscar nominated production designer Susie Davies, who I'm actually kind of a big fan of because I loved her production design a lot for Conclave, and here it's a big swing with all this artistic force behind it. So Morgan, Josh, what did you two think about Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights?
I mean, I loved it. I am someone who read the book, and I actually reread it right before we went, and I still loved it. I mean, even as someone who read that book at around the same age that Emerald Fennell said she read it when she was 14, and then read it again as an adult, it's an incredibly difficult novel for a lot of reasons. And as Josh, I think, pointed out, the characters are really hard. They're, I don't know if they're necessarily immoral, but they're only driven by their own wants and needs. And they're willing to take down anybody to do it. So they're definitely, she kept a lot of what was in the book. She just told it in a different way. The set design was unbelievable. I mean, the room that's made out of scans of Margot Robbie's skin was so interesting. And the costumes, they weren't necessarily of the time period, but I thought they were gorgeous. I thought Jacob Elordi was really, really good. His transition from sort of like servant boy Heathcliff to this fully fleshed, dapper Heathcliff was impressive. I thought Margot Robbie was also very good. I didn't believe her as much as a teenage Kathy. She was, once she transitioned into adulthood, she was much more, it was easier for me to like believe, and not necessarily because of her age. She just didn't necessarily have that same, but the chemistry between them was explosive and incredible. And I don't think they could have picked anybody better for Nellie either.
Hong Chau's amazing in this.
You feel all the right feelings for her. And I know people have different opinions on what roles Nellie played, and it was interesting that Emerald Fennell made her the flat out kind of villain, but who isn't a villain in the movie? It's like, all in the story, everybody is terrible. And she kept along with that, and I think you have to, but whether or not you really want to, you do root for them to end up together.
Right.
Even though they're burning the world down as they're doing it. I really liked it. I mean, the marketing was super heavy. This was a movie made for women my age. I'm in my 30s. Charlie XCX soundtrack. I mean, Jacob Elordi is very popular with women my age. Margot Robbie is my age. This was made to appeal to like everything that we sort of millennial women like, and it hits that. I think that the marketing was a little bit misleading just because it really played up their love story. And if you didn't know anything about the story, you probably thought it would be something quite different. I had read the book, so I knew that the marketing was misleading, but it worked, because I mean, the Instagram stuff that I'm seeing, I'm not on social media a lot, but when I see Instagram stuff, it's just women reacting to Wuthering Heights. And they've either read the book 1,000 times and were pissed off about it, or never read the book and were absolutely devastated in love with the movie. So, I mean, it delivered in a lot of ways, and in other ways, I mean, I think that there was a very abrupt ending. Also, cut me off if I'm talking too fast. I mean, I'm just talking flatly. I feel like somebody should have a turn.
No, you're good. You're good.
I think that the ending was incredibly abrupt for me. And I know, obviously I knew what was going to happen. It happens in the book, but I think there was an opportunity there to maybe use a little bit of the ghostiness that's in the book to transition out, instead of just like the closing scene. It was devastating either way. I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, this one had I to sit with it for a minute, because I knew I loved the visuals. I love that you talked about the cinematographer, the costume design, all that. That was incredible. We saw this in RPX, so it was super loud and boomy. The sound design was incredible. Music was great. I was on board with all that. Just like the book for me, I had to struggle with, these people treat each other like garbage. I mean, there's so much just terrible abusive behavior, but you do root for them to end up together, which I think is a mark of a great film. I think the fact that you have these characters that are so reprehensible and just so bad, and still you're like, God, I hope they I hope if something happens. I thought the Romeo and Juliet motif was interesting. Early on, they have someone sitting. Who's the character?
Isabella.
Isabella is talking about reading Romeo and Juliet, and then the way the movie ends sort of mirrors that sort of Romeo finds Juliet, Juliet finds Romeo kind of thing. I thought that was really a neat little Chekhov's gun addition to the movie that wasn't in the book. But yeah, I really liked it. I had to sit with it for a minute. The craft was easy to appreciate, but I liked how weird it was. Can we talk about that opening scene?
Oh yeah, the
Oh my
hanging,
God.
the gallows scene. I read an interesting take that
Yeah.
the kids watching the gallows hanging is also supposed to be us because because it also after the guy is like after the guy dies it shows like an imprint of like his erect penis under his pants, and you're just it's a very curious kind of like editing effect to where it's like going from the man then to his pants then to the audience. I feel like that's saying so much about audience and their expectations of this movie.
100%.
Yeah, and I heard also a different interesting take that this is a film by and for people who do not like the book, and I had to sit on that a little bit. I was just like, oh, fascinating.
That's me.
I mean, I think that I don't know if people were upset that it didn't cover the second half of the book, because I don't know if people even know this who haven't read it. There is a second half of the book, and it pertains heavily to Kathy and Heathcliff's children, and Heathcliff like just carrying out a 30-year reign of terror. This like terrorizes everybody.
Yeah, this feel, because you were mentioning how the ending was abrupt, and I didn't know that it was only like literally half of the novel until I walked out and just like, okay, then it does feel pretty abrupt. I feel like my main problem with this movie is that isn't really a big one. I wish it was longer. I wish it was like a 3-hour like epic tragedy about this kind of about these people who just kind of sow resentment with each other because they don't follow their heart. I think that's the real tragedy in the heart of this film, is just they're not honest with themselves or each other.
Yeah.
Last thing we heard was they're not honest with each other.
Like they're not.
Gone again.
I don't know what's happening here, guys. Sorry. So like you see these characters, they're not honest with each other. They're not honest with people around them. So they're just sowing hatred and resentment through just everybody around them. And I feel like that's the heart of this movie, is that it's not romantic at all. It's very hurtful, spiteful, and mean, but it's ravishing and also just
you have two beautiful people with insane chemistry at the center of it. So even though they're terrible, that pulls you in.
I will say another problem with mine. I love the casting to this except for Robbie. I think this is perhaps a bit of a miscast for me personally. I love Margot Robbie as an actor. However, I think she has delivered kind of poor performances. I really do not like her performance in Damien Chazelle's Babylon. But here it's strong. However, like it feels like Elordi's great, but to me, she feels a little pointed and one note here, where Elordi, I feel, is going through a vast emotions here. Another actor who I really loved here was Shazad Latif, who plays Edgar, who Catherine ends up marrying in the middle of the film. I thought he brought a lot of humanity to this story. I thought he brought a lot of kind of like logic and ethos that I don't think that Heathcliff or Catherine really carry, because they're both pretty they're pretty flawed people. But like you get Edgar, and he's just kind of like kind of this faultless character who doesn't really do anything wrong within the film, but but once you reach the end,
Once you reach the end,
you kind of like see that he's been changed by these two, and you don't know if it's like for better or for worse. I think he's the real kind of like heavyweight in this movie is Shazad Latif. I thought he was just fantastic. The XCX songs, but
I thought Robbie was great. I really liked her in the role. When I was thinking about this is the woman who played Harley Quinn, this is the woman who played Barbie, and then those were the two roles that came to mind when I was watching this and watching her in this. I get what Morgan's complained about playing teenage Kathy, but no, I thought she was really good, and I bought into it. I thought she was cast well. What did you think?
I mean, I think that obviously she works closely with Emerald Fennell, and she has produced all of her movies with Lucky Chap, so it makes sense that they would choose her. I think that what you said about her being like sort of one tone the entire time is an important actual insight, because Kathy doesn't ever change. And that's her whole deal, is like she doesn't ever learn anything. She doesn't grow up. She doesn't feel guilty, like all the way to the end of her life. She's selfish. And actually, I've heard some commentary that she has like a personality disorder, like, you know, psychologists who have read the book and said, oh, well, she's got this or this. I definitely could see that. I mean, Heathcliff does go through an evolution, but his main thing in the beginning of the story is that he is her pet, and like introducing him in that way was really interesting, because then you can tell, even though he feels so powerful towards the end, he's completely her slave, and he will do anything for her. I think that, yeah, I mean, there's a couple other people that could have taken the role, but for these purposes, I get why they picked her. Yeah.
I don't think she's terribly miscast. Like, she's pretty strong in the role. I was just like, man, what if Florence Pugh was Catherine? Or perhaps Emma
like
Mackey, Ella McKay. I'm kidding, but we also have another actor from here that we didn't really talk about, and that's Alison Oliver as Isabella, who comes more into play in the second half of the book. And I know there's also some contention there with the discourse around this film on how Heathcliff treats her, because in here it is a little different, because they're both kind of in on the scheme that Heathcliff wants to pull with that character. And I think it gets weirdly funny, but also pretty disturbing the way it kind of. But I think
I'm glad you brought that up. Are you supposed to see humor in this film? Because I felt like the transitions were funny, and was that intentional, or was that my read? Like the gloopiness, the sumptuousness. I mean, it was so overt sometimes. It felt like it was uncomfortably funny. Was that intentional, or was that my read?
I am not too sure myself.
Okay. The movie keeps you on your toes, though.
Yeah, I know in the book that I've heard in the book that Isabella is not in on it, and she's just kind of like abused by Heathcliff.
I think that how she chose to go about their relationship was pretty fascinating and to me, because in the book, Heathcliff does flat out tell her, I'm never ever going to love you. And she goes with him anyway. So there is that element there. That said, Heathcliff in the book is so much worse than what you see in the movie, because it seems like, oh my God, he's like forced her into this. I mean, I don't know too much about that lifestyle, but he's forced her into this situation where she's the submissive to his dominant. But in the book, he like hangs her dog from a tree. And he constantly is like telling her how much he doesn't love her. Unfortunately, the dog gets saved. Nellie saves it before it dies. But there's a lot of dog motif in the book, which I think is interesting also. But that's a different thing.
Where the book is worse.
It's so much worse.
Darker. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact that, you know, Alison Oliver's crawling around on the floor like a dog, whatever. It's disturbing, but I would say the book.
Was that a nod to the dog motifs?
But I think also it's
Interesting.
important to note that in the book, Heathcliff can read and write. And so to have a thing where Alison Oliver's character, Isabella, is able to, she's got one up on him there. And so they're kind of power playing back and forth. And I think she likes that, just because she was so infantilized the entire time. It's still strange, but but it's definitely a lot of homages to the book that she just took a really, really interesting tact with. Like all of the pieces are sort of there in a very like she flipped them upside down and put them together backwards kind of way.
I like that we can see on the screen right now the quotations around the title. You know, and the fact that the director came out and presented it like that. Like, this is not the adaptation that you're going to watch in high school after you read the book.
Right.
But who would want it? Like I feel. I was reading something the other day where one of these women on, Instagram was going like, oh, well, I really related to the book and I'm just horrified by what they did with it. And I'm going, what part of this? What part of the book did you relate to? Right. Do you need a wellness check? Like, are you okay? Because you should not relate to any single person in that book. They're all horrible, from the guy in the very beginning who is living on Heathcliff's land. And that's how the whole story starts, to right up until the end. Like, I mean, they're all really reprehensible people.
Well, so with this covering a very only a good chunk of the novel, would either of you be interested in seeing Emerald Fennell tackle what happens after the events of this part?
I think what you said earlier about needing a longer movie is definitely true. I think that for several reasons, there was much more story to tell there, especially because Wuthering Heights is a ghost story. Like, it starts off with a ghost. It ends with them walking across the moors as ghosts, which I think would have been an amazing ending. So like cut to old Heathcliff, and he finally like wanders out of the decrepit, like falling apart Wuthering Heights, and then wanders off to like his ghost to be with Kathy. Like that, I think there could have been like something like that. I think there was much more opportunity, and dare I say it, the sex that was marketed to everyone was a lot less than I thought it would be.
Right.
I mean, the scenes that were very, attractive were very attractive, but it was a lot less overt than I thought she would go for. And there was a lot of places there that I was just surprised that she had, as somebody who really kind of embraces like weirdness and divisiveness, and did really, kind of strange things, like, bathtub scene in Saltburn. Why not jump into the ghosts? Why not jump into the weirdness? Like, I don't know, maybe it got cut in the end, but it would be cool if she, in a year she releases a director's cut where all the things you're hoping will happen.
Yeah, I think this screams for a director's cut as much as we make fun of like the Snyder cut and stuff like that. Like, a 3-hour director's cut of this would be fantastic. Like, bring it on.
Totally agree. I'd be so down for a director's cut. It'd be so rad. I'm trying to think of what else there really is to talk about this film. We were both pretty positive on it. Did y'all like this more or less than Emerald Fennell's other stuff? Because this is probably my favorite from her so far.
Yeah. I mean, this was like a Poor Things versus Begonia versus whatever. This was a very relatable.
Great analogy.
I mean, despite the discourse that's going on online and whatever about, Elordi's casting is very controversial because he's not a person of color, and in the book, it's never established what Heathcliff's race is. And I was reading an article from the Bronte Parsonage. In the New York Times, they made some comments and they were saying, like, we don't actually know what his race was. He was very racially ambiguous. That was purposeful. So I know I'm seeing a lot of these people like freak out about the fact that it was Elordi, but I have the only issue with that is, yes, absolutely, there should be representation. But I also feel like if Emerald Fennell, this is the way she saw it, this is the way she saw it. And it might be a product of being raised in a racist society. And so she only pictures Heathcliff as white. And that's whatever. But I also think everybody who's complaining about it, no, she did all these terrible things. And oh my God, it's so explosive. And why would you do this? And I'm like, what do you think Wuthering Heights was when it came out as a book? I mean, it was not enjoyed by many people. I mean, Jane Eyre came out, her sister wrote it, and it was immediately popular. Wuthering Heights was not popular till after Emily died. And so I'm like, dude, just let her cook.
and until she died, it was under a pen name, a pseudonym, until long after.
Yeah.
And a male pseudonym,
Ellis
right?
Bell. Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be like androgynous. Ellis Bell, Acton Bell, and Currer Bell. They each had one.
Before you were talking about that, though, you kind of had my mind spinning of like, what if Yorgos Lanthimos made Wuthering Heights?
Yeah.
Ooh. I don't hate it, but I love her take on that because, like, I liked The Lobster fine, and then Poor Things blew my mind, and I feel like this is the same kind of level up here that Fennell did.
I feel, of course, that Fennell and Lanthimos kind of walk the same stride, but they have like kind of like different approaches because like Lanthimos is more stilted, wide angled, very distant, and Fennell actually really wants to get a little in your face with everything.
Oh yeah.
And I find that pretty interesting, kind of comparing those two.
This movie was so moist. Like, it was the most moist movie I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
It's the fingers in the eggs. It's fingers in mouths. It's kneading dough with the, like, squelching. It's putting, so many... Even, I was watching a thing about the production design, and even the walls of Wuthering Heights, like, the outside, were meant to look wet. They designed them to look wet rather than, like, to be period accurate, because everything was supposed to be in this sense of like tension, and it's wild.
And you got all it's almost always raining.
Yes.
And everything's so damp and moldy a little bit, like especially in the back half where like some characters go back to Wuthering Heights, and especially like Catherine when she like visits her alcoholic dad, and then when Heathcliff takes Isabella back to Wuthering Heights, also the whole area just feels gross. And
it's interesting that Heathcliff never restores the home. He comes back with money and keeps it as is, and brings Isabella into that terrible, moist, decrepit place.
I like the ambiguity of his wealth. I think that was really cool too.
Yeah, that's consistent with the book as well. And it's, implied that he has gone off somewhere, maybe in the military, maybe in whatever. But I think it's cool that she didn't try and flesh that out, because in the 1939 one, they say he like went to America and made his money in something or other. But I think
textile,
probably the 1800s.
Yeah. This is a big swing of an adaptation, and I'm really glad it exists. I know like the internet is gonna be the internet, and they're gonna be like, oh, it's another Wuthering Heights adaptation. But this is my first exposure really to the story, and I really appreciated it from like an outsider's perspective, and I'm really glad to hear that you two, as book readers, even though I get the impression that you two feel very differently about the book. It's really cool to hear that y'all's take on this adaptation in regard to the material that that's in the book. So here at Cinefied, we have three kind of ratings. We have a spilled bag, which is skip it. We have a half bag, which is like maybe wait until rental, maybe for a matinee, and we have the full bag. We just like go to the movies for it. So Josh, Morgan, Full bag, half bag, or the spilled bag for y'all?
I mean, full bag for me, just because I think seeing it on the small screen versus the big screen would not be the same
Right.
experience.
Yeah,
I think you need that.
Yeah, especially like with the cinematography, which was my favorite aspect of it. I think like you're
Agreed.
not getting that part where Heathcliff is riding off into the sunset and you see that huge just red sky and he's just and with
Searchers,
the sun
sunset.
with the sunset in the background. That's not going to hit you on like a 30-inch screen plasma screen TV at home. And
Man, the colors in this were incredible too.
right? I think
just gorgeous.
Yeah, I don't know if you all have seen Conclave, but Susie Davies'
Yes.
production design is very similar and very like, and in here it's very surreal, especially with the fireplace with the crawling, the hundreds of hands on like over it. I thought it was like some of the most surreal, striking, but ravishing production design in a long time, and I really loved it. It's got a full back for me too. I have some problems with it, but I think it's a ravishing tale. I think it's heartbreaking. I think it's really invigorating to kind of just follow these two characters and just kind of like the feelings that they put in you and the other people that surround them. And it's such a fascinating study really about this time and these people. I really enjoyed myself with it.
One more thing for me, I give it a full 2. As dark and as weird as this was, I feel like a lot of the creators really got to play here. I love that we have Charlie XCX with John Cale from the Velvet Underground, and we have these mashups of. You didn't know that? Yeah.
No.
The first track on the soundtrack, John Cale is on there.
Hell yeah.
And just as dark and as weird as it is, it feels like they're playing here. It feels like all the creators are bringing something that's them, that's big, that's weird, that's strange, that's different, that's striking. I agree with what Morgan said too. Like, see it on a giant screen. It's such a sumptuous, engrossing thing.
And campy. It's campy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I love that the normies are going to see this and think it's a date night movie. I love it came out on Valentine's weekend.
Right.
I love the idea of middle of the road people coming in to see this, holding hands, and that opening scene hits them like a ton of bricks and sets the tone for the whole thing, and tells you to strap in.
But you say that, but there was a middle-aged couple next to us in the theater when we saw it, and they were crying and holding hands when they left. And there was a group of young people sitting, like, sort of, I mean, I say young people, maybe in the early 20s, sitting, a couple seats down from us, and they went from panting, like, to crying, and they were weeping uncontrollably as they went out. So I feel like it's a really interesting dynamic that, as upsetting as a lot of it is, you leave like heartbroken for them that they didn't end up together, and it's somehow she manages to convince you that this love story was like meant to be in some way. At least that's what I took away from it. It didn't seem like anybody was walking out of the theater we were in going, I hate this is awful. I mean, I didn't hear that.
Well, look at the poster right behind us. I mean, that's a classic, like 1940s, 1950s Hollywood sweeping romance poster.
Yeah.
That's
Gone with the Wind.
100%.
Yeah, I was about to say very Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
I can't really have my own anecdote for that. Me and my friends were the only one in the theater on 4 o'clock on Thursday. But it wasn't IMAX. It wasn't it was just a regular kind of theater showing, wasn't premium format. But still a great experience nonetheless. But do you two have any other closing thoughts?
I would say that anybody who is a hardcore Bronte book reader, try and give it a shot. I mean, I feel like there's so much that she does in the story that you might have wanted to happen in the book. And I think that it's a great opportunity to explore the things that you sort of, I mean, I read it when I was 14. When Kathy says, Nellie, I am Heathcliff, like whatever our souls are made of. That was, at the time I thought that was really cool. And like and now and like reading it again, it's like, oh wow, no, that was awful. Like she loses herself. But I think this interpretation really brings a sense of life to it that there hasn't been in a long time. I mean, if you watch any of the other versions, it's all drudgery. I mean, which is realistic because she wrote it out like in her town of what was it, like Hayworth or Gimmerton, and it was gray all the time. She had nothing to do. Everyone had tuberculosis. So yeah, that makes sense that all these others like interpretations are about those things. But this one just really kind of plays with it, which I think is cool and refreshing, because if you just watch the same sad Wuthering Heights over and over again, I mean, like I feel like you're just watching these two people torture each other and they never even get to be intimate. And it's like, but here's an opportunity to see something different. Yeah. I think it's totally worthwhile. I would encourage anybody to give it a shot. I mean, I think that the rating of 60, I think it's hovering at 63 right now. I think is a little low. I would give it more.
Is it really?
I would say like more like a 74 or something, like higher. I wouldn't put it, God tier, but
tomato meter right now sits at 62.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been dropping then, I guess. I think it definitely got, it's just really so interesting, especially to watch how people reacted to it on the internet, of these hardcore fans and then these people who even like they couldn't abandon it. They just could not abandon the idea of Heathcliff and Kathy being this like tortured whatever, but they are tortured. It's just in a new, different way.
Yeah.
And I feel like Fennell would be okay with this being divisive and okay with people being split and mad about it and in love with it. I think that's the point. It's challenging. It's different. I hope she's in her weird riffing on an adaptation of a book, the film phase, bring it on.
Right. Well, thank you two so much for joining me tonight. This was a wonderful discussion, and I hope to talk to you two sometime in the future. For those listening at home, we hope you have a good night, and tell us what you think in the comments about what you thought about Wuthering Heights. We'd love to hear it. But I'm your host, Trevor Leavell, signing off for now. Until next time.